Matthew Manley. I'm a certified planner with the American Planning Association's Institute of Certified Planners, and I serve as the long-range planning manager for the City of Hendersonville's Community Development Department. I've been with the city for just under 5 years. I'm here to talk to you about some recent zoning text amendments that the City Council has adopted to address our housing needs. They are aimed to increase our housing supply in a very targeted fashion here in the city, and to create opportunities that I want to talk to you guys about. And we're calling this opportunities for micro developers. These are folks maybe like yourself who own residential property and now have these new opportunities to better utilize that property to create additional revenue streams, additional income opportunities, while also creating additional housing that's needed. And to do all this in a way that matches the city's overall vision as established in our recently adopted Gen H comprehensive plan. And so I just want to take a few minutes to go over the details of those zoning text amendments to encourage people to look into the new opportunities that have been created for you. So let's hop into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over some housing related terms that you may hear regularly. The first one is affordable housing. What exactly does that mean? You hear it all the time, but what it specifically means is that it refers to the amount of cost associated with housing. So the rent, the mortgage, the utilities, the maintenance, etc., and that total housing cost does not exceed 30% of the household's income. So that's what makes it affordable housing. If the costs do exceed 30%, then that's what's considered cost burdened. And if you're over 50%, it's extreme cost burdened. This is a widespread issue across the entire country, and it's hitting folks here locally who are also overextended by their housing cost. The next term is market rate housing. This was another one, you hear it all the time. It simply refers to privately offered housing, the price of which is dictated by the market. So it can fluctuate, the price can fluctuate based on market conditions, and it is non-subsidized. Now you can have market rate housing that is also affordable. This is what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. This is when that 30% or less cost threshold is met, but it's not due to a government subsidy or a voucher or anything like that. It's just lower cost housing that's provided within the market. And it's often coupled with the idea of attainable housing or workforce housing. This is housing that's made available, specifically to those making around an average income. So anywhere from, say, 80% to 120% of the area's median income. And oh, by the way, area median income, you'll hear AMI. That's an abbreviation that's very often used as it refers to subsidized housing and government programs for providing housing for certain levels of income based on AMI. This attainable housing, workforce housing, it's also can be tied to this idea of starter homes or empty nester homes. These are typically, just because of their small size, these homes are naturally affordable. They are a product type that we've seen less and less built. Less and less of it has been built over the last number of decades, outside of maybe some patio home type developments. But this idea of small single family detached homes used to be very common, but as housing plans and floor plans have grown and grown over time, it's gotten to the point where starter homes are all but non-existent in terms of new housing stock. So that's a really important consideration. We'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of how providing additional housing stock of smaller size creates a dynamic local real estate market. And then lastly, we have missing middle housing. And what we, again, have primarily seen built over the last few decades has either been, one or two things, either large scale apartment buildings, garden style apartments that are 3 or 4 stories tall, surrounded by parking lots. And then on the other hand, you may have single family subdivisions that are often constructed by national builders, large national firms. They have similar or identical floor plans from one planned community to the next. And in both of these cases, you'll find that they're most typically constructed on greenfield property, vacant property that was once farmland or forested. And that's what we're having, that's what we see being built. So this idea of missing middle is something other than that, something between a single family subdivision and a large scale apartment complex. And the term refers to specifically a mix of housing types, from accessory dwelling units, ADUs, to duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, small apartment buildings, cottage courts, which are these clusters of single family detached homes. And in each of these cases, the units have smaller footprint sizes that are more compatible to fit within an existing neighborhood, adjacent to, say, a single family home and integrated within a community. And so it's a really great tool for providing additional density that's, commingled with existing neighborhoods, utilizing existing infrastructure and dispersing across the city that needed housing, that additional housing units or increased density, so that you're not having to accommodate all the housing needs by drastically changing the landscape and having to mitigate the externalities that are associated with that type of large scale development. This kind of concept is also referred to as gentle density. And so you can think about it in that term as well. You're achieving density, but you're also doing it in a way that's compatible and a more gentle approach. So you may be asking why we have a picture of fruit trees on the screen. Well, this is a concept I want to share that materialized during the process of going through the adoption process for these zoning text amendments. And the idea is that, we're going to do some easy things we've been talking about, things that are just kind of a shift or a reversal of policies that may have been changed, not too long ago. But then we also have some, we were calling that the low hanging fruit, very common term. But then we had some more impactful changes that we were proposing, things that were going to be more dramatic. And so we started calling those the high hanging fruit, the fruit at the top of the tree, which is, harder to reach. And I'll just take a pause real quickly. If you're watching this video, you're watching the long version, please hang around to the end. I'm going to go in order from low hanging fruit to high hanging fruit. And so the more impactful changes are going to be towards the end of the video. So you want to hang around to kind of hear about what some of those doors that have been opened and learn more about that. So back to the metaphor. The idea for a metaphor of this thing called an espalier, which is a way of managing and training a fruit tree along a fence line or a wall, and training the tree in a way that it will produce an abundance of fruit, and it does so in a way that's easy to reach. And so this idea really started to take shape to illustrate what we're trying to do with the amendments to the zoning ordinance as it relates to housing, incentivizing certain types of housing, creating opportunities that are going to help address our housing crisis by making quality housing available to everyone within everyone's reach. So the first thing we did, the low-hanging fruit, if you will, was that we reduced our setbacks across all of our residential and commercial zoning districts. We also reduced minimum lot widths. So in this example, you'll see you can see the zoning districts that were impacted, and you can see in this R15 example that there was an 85-foot wide minimum lot width that got reduced down to 70 feet. That results in a longer, skinnier lot. This added flexibility, which will allow a number of existing lots that are non-conforming will now be in compliance, will be conforming, and it will allow for the creation of new lots as well. It also follows a pattern for how lots were traditionally laid out in a 3-to-1 ratio of depth to the width. We also see that we had over about 50% of the land area on a lot was being dedicated to the setback area. So I've shown it in green here. This is after the changes, but that area that's outside the setbacks is, in this example, over 50% of that area in a lot was being dedicated to the setbacks. And when we think about setbacks, these are spaces that are being reserved for yard space. Historically, zoning has required setbacks for various reasons. Those reasons have evolved over time, but primarily they're used to create separation from neighboring land uses. to make consistent neighborhood appearances and to provide privacy. So in short, setbacks are mandated distances that our homes, from which our homes can be situated from a street or from our neighbors. So whether or not setbacks actually improve privacy or contribute to quality of life, that's something that can be debated. And these outcomes are often much more related to design than they are just to space and distance. So with that in mind, we aimed to create opportunities for people to come up with their own solutions to provide more flexibility and create more buildable area to address our housing needs. So to do this, we reduced that area from 50% to say 25 to 35% by reducing those setbacks. In this example, you can see the front setback was cut in half, went from 30 to 15. That's where we made up a lot of ground with our 15. And then on the sides, we took a couple of feet off and the rear stayed the same. So you'll want to go check your corresponding zoning district to see how those setbacks have changed for you. We also required that new homes that had a front facing garage, that portion of the structure would be set back 25 feet rather than the 15 feet in the case of R15. So this applies specifically to the portion of the structure that houses the front facing garage, so not the whole structure. And whereas the front setback may be 15 feet, the setback for the front facing garage is 25 feet, so that you don't have points of conflict at the sidewalk where you have folks who are parking in areas that are obstructing the sidewalk where people are trying to walk by, forcing them out into the street, for creating, it's in violation of the city's ordinances, but we wanted to make sure we address that by creating good opportunities for design. So you can have a side entry garage, you can have a rear garage, you can have a detached garage, any of those things, and this extra 10 foot would not apply. But if you are going to have a front facing garage where the garage door is facing towards the street, then you have an additional setback requirement. So we also looked at providing some exceptions to our setbacks. So items such as steps, ramps, eaves, overhangs, porches, these are all exempted from the front setback up to 5 feet and exempted up to 3 feet on side and rear. So this allows for accommodations that are needed for access, whether it be for ramps or anything of that nature. We also didn't want to penalize folks for providing eaves on houses. Eaves are an important element on housing. They help to keep weather off of the siding and out of windows and doors. They work in conjunction with gutters to keep water off of the ground around the foundation. They keep sun from penetrating doors and windows and provide protection from deterioration of the additional sun and weather conditions, to protect not just the outside of the home, but also the inside of the home, and to prevent driving up of energy cost. So eaves can be really important. And so something we don't want to penalize when it comes to our setbacks. And then there's the provision for the front porches. And so this was something that we wanted to incentivize because it provides a lot of value from a community standpoint, not just the structure of the home or access to the home, but also how it interfaces with the community. Front porches provide opportunities for social interaction and interfacing with our neighbors who may be passing by in the street. So this allows us to build relationships and increase community awareness and improve safety, actually. So one issue that I've become more keenly aware of is that not only do we have a housing problem in this country, but we also have a social isolation problem. We have a loneliness epidemic. So this type of thought towards design is really important for us to be considering as city planners, as city leaders, as builders, as members of the community. We need to be thinking about this. And so according to state law, we cannot require this type of architectural design feature on a single family, 2-family, 3-family, or 4-family home. But we can do things like this where we make it an exception to the setback so that we're incentivizing it and allowing for that flexibility for this type of feature that we want to see. Another change we made was to eliminate the additional minimum lot size required for a duplex. So now in each of our base zoning districts, we allow, and we have allowed, 2-family homes to be built, but previously it came with this requirement for an additional minimum lot size, so additional square footage of land that was required, usually up to an additional 50% of what was required for single family home, had to be tacked on or had to exist in order to be able to build a duplex instead of a single family home, or to convert a single family home into a duplex. So in this case, we just eliminated that extra requirement. And if you meet the minimum lot size for the zoning district, then you can have either a single family home or a two family home. So getting into some of that higher hanging fruit, some of the more impactful changes, I mentioned ADUs, accessory dwelling units. They are a type of missing middle housing that's been allowed in Hendersonville for a long, long time. And to further encourage this housing type as a solution to our housing needs, the maximum square footage allowed for an ADU has bumped up from 800 square feet to 1,200 square feet. And again, this just provides a little more opportunity for these types of needed smaller units. I'm going to get into why this smaller unit is needed more. Another change that involves this 1,200 square foot number relates to new allowances to create small lots, or what's called reduced pole flag lots. So these are reduced size lots. They're permitted regardless of your zoning district. The provision allows you to create a lot as small as 2,000 square feet, as long as the home or the structure that is built on the lot is no greater than 1,200 square feet. So let's say you have an existing home that's greater than 1,200 square feet on an existing lot, and that existing lot has at least an excess of 2,000 square feet above what the minimum lot size is for the zoning district it's located in. So you can take that excess 2,000 square feet and cut it off, make it its own lot, maybe in this case at the rear of the property, and you can build a 1,200 square foot single family home on it, and you can then sell that, or you can rent it. You can you have that choice. You can rent it at first and then sell it in the future. It's essentially an accessory dwelling unit that is now going to sit on its own lot. So if it's on its own lot, that can open up new opportunities for financing the construction of it, and provides for other options besides just renting it, as you would for an ADU that's on the same lot as your principal dwelling. There's also, if you have let's say you have an existing home that is under 1,200 square feet, and then you can actually put that existing home on a small lot or on a reduced pole flag lot and use the remainder of the land for additional housing. And that can come in various forms. It kind of depends on the remainder, what the size of the land and the zoning district you're in. But you always could do more of the reduced pole flag lots or small lots, up to a total of 6. So if you have on any parcel that's 2 acres or less, again, you can do this provision, these 2,000 square foot lots for 1,200 square foot homes, up to 6 times. So each of these, in this case, would be small lots or small homes that are individually served by utilities with shared access across the lots, providing access to each of them. We do require that each lot has at least one large tree and one small tree that's either preserved or planted, so that we're not overly impacting our tree canopy. We require that consideration be given to trash cans and recycling cans and places where brush will be collected. So we can think about all these things in advance, because we have a lot going on in a small area, a compact area, and with giving some forethought and design, we can make this work. And so we've got all that outlined in this new ordinance for small lots and reduced pole flag lots. Again, minimum 2,000 square foot lot, maximum structure 1,200 square feet. I will note that they can be single family homes. They can be 2 family. So this would be 600 and 600, for instance, square feet for a total of 1,200. Or you could have a single family home with an accessory dwelling unit. Say this one's maybe 800 and this is 400. And that provides some additional flexibility. There are some real world examples. This has been done in other places. I'll just note that, not only does this allow for new housing, but the new housing, again, can be bought and sold. They're great examples of starter homes or empty nester homes and tools that can be used for building equity or downsizing. Um, and in this case, I'm talking about building equity. So say you start a home, you're new to the market, and you invest in one of these, and then boom, room for rent. So you need to find a roommate to help you maybe make the ends meet to bring your housing costs down so that it's affordable, so that you're not cost burdened, right? But then you're also building equity, and as your life stages move forward, you may have new opportunities afforded to you to move up in the market because you've made this investment. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we made another significant change that is, again, incentivizing these smaller units in what we're calling our half unit provision. This applies to zoning districts that are density based, meaning the standards for how many units can be built on the property is based on the units per acre allowed in the zoning district the property is located in, and you multiply that times the acreage of the property. So again, how many dwelling units can I have on a piece of land? Well, that's going to be dictated by the size of the land, and then how many units are allowed per acre according to your zoning district. To make this more accommodating for naturally occurring affordable housing, we added a provision that says that if the units you're constructing are 1,200 square feet or less, then they count as half a unit for the purposes of dictating your density. So in other words, you can now double your density if the units are constructed or smaller. And again, this applies to all zoning districts that are density based. This is mainly going to be our multifamily zoning districts. However, there is an exception to that, which I will introduce shortly. That's going to be widely applicable to a number of zoning districts. But before I get into that, I'm going to talk about this 1,200 square foot number. So why have we made that this magic number that unlocks all these, incentives? Well, what we heard from the community and from folks who are working in the field of trying to provide affordable housing, that this 1,200 square foot number is really a key size for a dwelling because it allows for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath layout. Now, there's a lot of flexibility that in terms of design and layout, but the fact that you can provide 2-bedroom, 2-bath with this size square footage creates a size that has the greatest flexibility for accommodating a range of household types with all types of various needs while also remaining affordable. So it's just simply a very versatile home size. So we started looking at the numbers to support this notion, and we found that there was a median household size of 1.89 in the city of Hendersonville. So we don't even have an average of more than 2 people. So why do we have such an abundance of homes that are over 2 bedrooms? So it clearly indicates that we need more of these smaller units. And then we also found that looking at our low to moderate income populations, 2/3 to 3/4 of those populations are individuals as well. So there's a great need in that specific population. And these numbers certainly tell a compelling story for needing to incentivize this type of smaller residents and encouraging the market to provide them by allowing these types of units to keep pace with the larger homes that are, otherwise incentivized by market forces. We are a popular destination. Hendersonville is attracting folks who have wealth. And so there's going to be a desire on the part of those who are providing the housing stock to accommodate that. But we also have this need for more affordable options to be accommodated as well. So this allows, if you can do more of the smaller homes, then it allows that type to keep pace with the larger homes when it comes to providing a return on investment for builders. And I'll just add that this can be a real benefit to those who are entering the market for the first time. I touched on this starter home idea. If we're supplying these, then more folks can find these types of places. They can invest in them, maybe get a roommate, start to build equity. And then on the other end of the market, folks who are needing to downsize, they can now find a place. They haven't had a place to downsize into. So now folks who, let's say they've been staying in their long-term residence, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or even larger home, they really desire a smaller place that's easier to maintain and smaller lot. Well, now that can be provided. And if we do that, then we create a really dynamic market where we have opportunities to move up and down through the market as you move through different life stages. And that's an opportunity that's been afforded to many previous generations of Americans. And so as those folks who are emptying their nest, and you've got folks who, invested in a starter home, they built up equity, they can sell their starter home to the next generation and move up in as maybe they have new demands for growing family, things of that nature. There will now be a unit that's just been vacated by the folks who are downsizing into these other units. So again, we're hitting both sides of the market, and in terms of life stages, and creating a much more dynamic opportunities here. So the next area that we addressed was planned residential development zoning district. So for decades, this zoning district was used for both single family subdivisions and large scale apartment developments. So we wanted to really reshape the PRD so that it was tailored for a specific range of developments and not so widespread. This meant eliminating the multifamily use, which you can see here. However, we also introduced 3-family and 4-family uses so that we were accommodating or able to accommodate a mixed housing type, mixed income community where you have single family, 2-family, 3-family, and 4-family housing. That's classic missing middle housing. We also introduced some neighborhood scale commercial uses so that we add walkable to that mix, a walkable mixed use, mixed housing type, mixed income neighborhood. And under these changes, we had some other provisions that are a little more technical, so I won't go into them in great depth, but they do require things like street connectivity and planning for future connections. So we're thinking about our transportation network and how we can accommodate growth by having an interconnected street network, and how that improves opportunities for walkability and bikeability. And then also encouraging certain design considerations. They're not required, but design certainly impacts how we interact with one another and opportunities for social cohesion and walkability and bikeability and things of that nature. The built environment certainly informs our decision making. So the most widely applicable change that was made was to the provisions for minor planned residential developments. If you own property in the city of Hendersonville, then you have property that has some type of zoning designation. In each of the zoning districts listed here, there is what's allowed. A minor planned residential development is an allowed use in that zoning district, in each of these zoning districts. This means that you can do a minor PRD on that property, and each of the zoning districts has an assigned density allotment that governs how many units you can build in your minor PRD. So for instance, if you have a half acre of land in R15, you can do 2 units on that half acre. A density of 4 units per acre times half an acre gives you 2. So one change that we made was to slightly increase the density for each of these zoning districts, a slight bump up. But also, if you think back to the half unit provision that we talked about earlier, that was adopted recently, you'll remember that if you construct units that are 1,200 square feet or less, then all of a sudden you go from only being able to do 2 units on that half acre to being able to do a quadplex. Now you could also do 4 townhomes, 2 duplexes, 4 single family homes, any arrangement of 4 units. But I mentioned quadplex specifically because another significant consideration that was made was that previously for a minor PRD, it was believed and understood and applied that you could only do single family or 2-family homes. And now the way this provision is written, you can do any of the residential uses that are permitted under planned residential development. So that allows single family, 2-family, and 3-family and 4-family, triplexes and quadplexes. So this creates opportunities for more missing middle housing within all of our existing zoning districts and our existing neighborhoods. And you've got some vacant property or underdeveloped property that you'd like to better utilize, or if you're a builder out there and you're looking at properties, You want to know what you can and can't do. And the minor planned residential development is going to be a new opportunity that provides you with a lot of different options. Again, single family homes, townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. So if you start looking at all the zoning districts that we've applied these changes to, you can see that it really impacts a lot of land, almost 60%. You start adding in the C2 and C3 that were also impacted, you're up to 70%. So a good bit of land is being impacted here. We also wanted to take a look at our comprehensive plan. That's our guiding document. And you can see these are the character areas for each of the residential character areas that are laid out in our future land use map. And as you read through it, you can see that we're working towards accommodating these types of descriptions. We're working towards this vision. If you look at the guiding principles and the goals of the comprehensive plan, you'll see some really specific language that has been adopted here to help us implement these goals and this vision. Compact development, missing middle housing, desirable and affordable housing. These are all desired outcomes that we are implementing, and we are encouraging the community to join us as we work towards achieving this vision. So with that, we definitely wanted to get the word out to folks, let you know about these changes to our zoning ordinance. Things have really shaking things up. We've made a lot of changes. A lot of them are quite new. Some involve reversing changes that were made decades ago. But in other cases, we're breaking new ground completely, and we wanted to make sure that the word gets out and that people are able to get an opportunity to take advantage of these changes. And so, if you're a resident or a property owner, a builder, it's really important that you know about these opportunities. And that if you're just thinking about entering the market, or you've been in the market looking for a house for some time, this can now give you an idea of what you may want to be on the lookout for, if this is something that you would be interested in, and see if it may be something that will work for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us for any technical questions you have. If you need more details for the specific language in the ordinances, if you're looking at a specific property and you're curious about what you can and can't do, or maybe some other protective measures that the city has as it relates to stream buffers and tree protection and things like that, you can call us and we'll be happy to help you. Anyone at the city in the city planning division can help you get answers to your questions. My information is on the screen. Feel free to reach out to me. Don't hesitate. We are happy to help. So with that, I will sign off and just want to thank everybody for listening in and paying attention. Thank you.